Addiction is a deeply intricate condition that affects individuals on multiple levels. It's not just about a person's dependency on a substance or behavior, but rather a complex intertwining of brain chemistry, emotional pain, and environmental factors. This issue reaches beyond mere cravings or the pursuit of pleasure. It encapsulates a cycle that traps the individual in patterns of behavior that feel insurmountable. Addiction is more than a desire for immediate relief. It is a condition that becomes ingrained in an individual's neural pathways, emotional state, and daily functioning. At its essence, addiction is often mistakenly seen as a failure of willpower or as a sign of personal weakness. This stigma is pervasive in society, leading many to view those struggling with addiction as morally compromised, undisciplined, or lacking self-control. In reality, addiction is a multifaceted disorder, both neurological and psychological, shaped by genetic predispositions, brain structure and function, life experiences, and often environmental influences. To truly understand addiction, we must first take a look at the brain. The brain is responsible for regulating most of our actions and responses, including our needs for food, water, rest, and social connection. The reward system in particular is central to how we process positive stimuli. When we engage in behaviors that are essential for our survival or emotional well-being, such as eating, sleeping, or forming bonds with others, the brain releases neurotransmitters, like dopamine, that create a sense of pleasure or satisfaction. This reinforcement encourages us to continue engaging in these behaviors. However, in individuals with addiction, this natural reward system is disrupted. When drugs, alcohol, gambling, or other compulsive behaviors are introduced, they trigger an overwhelming release of dopamine, far beyond what is naturally produced during regular life experiences. This flood of dopamine can lead to feelings of intense euphoria, relief, or escape from emotional pain. Over time, this creates a dependency, where the brain becomes reliant on these external stimuli to feel good. Natural sources of pleasure, such as relationships, hobbies, or personal achievements, become less stimulating, and the brain becomes rewired to seek out the addictive behavior more and more. The impact of addiction isn't just confined to dopamine. Other neurotransmitters, including serotonin, GABA, and glutamate, also play crucial roles in regulating mood, stress responses, and emotional balance. When these systems are disrupted, often as a result of substance use or compulsive behaviors, the individual may experience significant emotional and psychological disturbances, which only deepen the cycle of addiction. The imbalance of these chemicals can contribute to the feelings of anxiety, depression, and impulsivity that many individuals with addiction experience. Beyond the brain, addiction is also deeply tied to our emotions and psychological state. For many individuals, addictive behaviors serve as a form of emotional escape. Life challenges, stress, grief, trauma, or mental health struggles may feel overwhelming, and substances or behaviors like drinking, drug use, gambling, or even overeating become coping mechanisms. The temporary relief these substances provide can create a vicious cycle, where the individual begins to rely on these behaviors to manage their emotional pain. For some people, addiction starts as a way of coping with trauma, difficult emotions, or a deep sense of emptiness. Initially, the use of substances or engagement in behaviors may provide a sense of comfort, even though this relief is short-lived. The more frequently someone uses these behaviors as a way to manage emotional distress, the more the brain becomes accustomed to this method of coping. As this pattern continues, the individual no longer uses the behavior merely to escape. it becomes the primary means of dealing with the addiction itself, which only deepens the problem. Cognitive distortions, or patterns of negative thinking, play a significant role in the persistence of addiction. Many individuals with addiction minimize or rationalize their behaviors, convincing themselves that the consequences are not as severe as they seem. This pattern of thinking makes it harder to break free from addiction, as individuals may feel justified in their actions, even in the face of mounting evidence that the behavior is damaging their lives. Addiction doesn't occur in a vacuum. It's often shaped by the environment in which a person is raised and currently lives. If someone grows up in a setting where substance use is normalized, where drug and alcohol use, or even behaviors like gambling, are commonplace, it can be difficult to recognize the harmful impact of these behaviors. The societal and familial attitudes towards substance use play a critical role in the development of addiction. Peer pressure, especially during adolescence, can further exacerbate the risk of addiction. Teenagers, in particular, are highly influenced by the behaviors of their friends and social circles. The desire to fit in and gain acceptance may lead them to engage in risky behaviors, such as substance use or gambling. Even as an adult, social pressures and stressors, whether from work, finances, or relationships, can lead to behaviors that develop into addiction. Family dynamics also contribute significantly to the risk of addiction. Children who grow up in homes where addiction is present, whether through their parents, siblings, or other family members, are more likely to develop addictive tendencies themselves. Dysfunctional family environments, characterized by neglect, abuse, or poor communication, can increase vulnerability to addiction. Traumatic experiences or emotional neglect can push individuals toward substances as a means of coping with their emotional pain and feelings of isolation. Conversely, individuals who grow up in environments where emotional support, healthy coping strategies, and positive role models are prevalent may be better equipped to resist addiction. A strong family support system, coupled with healthy friendships and access to mental health care, can serve as protective factors that reduce the likelihood of developing addiction, even in the face of life's stresses. The debate around whether addiction is genetically determined has been ongoing for decades. The answer, as current research suggests, is a complex one. Genetics can influence a person's susceptibility to addiction. Individuals with a family history of addiction are more likely to develop addictive behaviors themselves. Genetic factors may make certain people more sensitive to the effects of drugs or alcohol, causing them to experience more pleasure or relief from engaging in these behaviors, which can increase the difficulty of quitting. However, genetics alone does not determine addiction. Life experiences, environment, and personal choices play an equally important role in shaping whether a person develops an addiction. The interplay between genetic predisposition and environmental factors is key to understanding the development of addiction. For instance, a person with a genetic predisposition for addiction may be more likely to seek out substances, but the likelihood of them developing a full-blown addiction is higher if they are exposed to negative environmental factors like peer pressure, childhood trauma, or chronic stress. The age at which a person is first exposed to addictive substances is also a critical factor. Early exposure, particularly during adolescence, can increase the risk of addiction later in life. The teenage brain is still developing, and substances can disrupt the brain's natural growth and function, making it more vulnerable to addiction. This early exposure alters the way the brain responds to substances, making it more difficult for an individual to resist the urge to engage in addictive behaviors. Addiction often begins with experimentation. A person may initially try drugs, alcohol, or other compulsive behaviors out of curiosity, peer pressure, or boredom. At first, there are no noticeable consequences. Perhaps the experience feels pleasurable or exciting. However, for some, that initial experience sets off a chain reaction, where occasional use evolves into regular use, and then into a cycle of dependence. As addiction develops, the brain adjusts. Tolerance increases, meaning that over time, the individual needs larger quantities of the substance or behavior to achieve the same effects. This increasing demand can lead to physical dependence, where the body becomes reliant on the substance or behavior to function. Withdrawal symptoms occur when the addictive behavior is stopped, ranging from mild discomfort to severe life-threatening conditions, depending on the substance involved. Even when physical dependence is not present, psychological dependence can take hold. This type of addiction is rooted in emotional cravings. The person becomes psychologically dependent on the behavior, feeling compelled to seek it out, despite the consequences. Psychological dependence can be even harder to overcome because it involves ingrained patterns of thought and emotional attachment. Recovery from addiction is a long and challenging journey. It involves more than simply stopping the addictive behavior. It requires healing the mind and body, addressing the emotional and psychological roots of addiction, and learning new coping strategies. Recovery is not linear, and the process can be full of setbacks and obstacles. The first step in recovery is often detoxification. During detox, the body eliminates the substance, which can be a physically uncomfortable process. Detoxification is especially difficult with substances like alcohol or opioids, where withdrawal symptoms can be severe. This stage is crucial, as it helps break the physical dependence on the substance, but it is only the beginning of recovery. Once detox is complete, therapy and counseling become essential for long-term healing. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, and other therapeutic approaches are used to help individuals identify and address the emotional and psychological causes of their addiction. Therapy helps individuals learn healthier coping mechanisms for managing stress, anxiety, and other emotional triggers that might lead them back to their addictive behavior. Support groups, such as Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, and Narcotics Anonymous, NA, provide a sense of community and shared experience during recovery. These groups can be invaluable for emotional and social support, helping individuals feel understood and less isolated in their struggles. Relapse is often a part of the recovery process. It is not a sign of failure, but rather an opportunity for growth. Relapse offers insight into the triggers and challenges that exist in the recovery journey, allowing individuals to learn from their experiences and strengthen their commitment to sobriety. Recovery is a process of transformation, one that involves deep self-reflection, emotional healing, and the development of new life skills. It requires patience, support, and a willingness to change. For many, recovery is not just about quitting the addictive behavior, but about rediscovering a healthier, more fulfilling life. Thanks for watching.